This is episode number 315 of the Homeowner Show. Well, whether you're DIY or looking to hire, we're here to help you find the best information and options for you and your home. My name is Kevin Hackett, and here with me is Craig Williams.
Hello, and welcome to the Homeowner Show. We are so glad that you could join us for another live episode here in the studio. How you doing, Kev?
Man, I'm doing good. It's, one of my favorite weekends of all the year.
Oh, because you like basketball?
You know me. Don't you? Like, if it's sports related, I probably do love it.
Yeah.
But yes, I do love college basketball. Thoroughly enjoy it. And March Madness is so much fun for me.
Yeah. Who else still kicking in this thing?
Well, I mean, this is the second round ends tonight. We're recording this on Sunday. If you're listening to the podcast, this will go out in a couple of days from now. But we'll head to the Sweet 16 coming up.
Okay.
And so right now, I mean, all the number ones are still in. You know, Auburn, Florida, Houston, and Duke are still in. My Red Raiders are still in, which is awesome. A&M's right out, but they got beat by Michigan.
Michigan, that's right. And it looked like they got shellacked.
Yeah, they did. I actually, believe it or not, I picked them to win over Michigan.
Okay.
But they didn't, and so won't be the last wrong thing I did in my bracket. But I had Florida losing to UConn today, and Florida was losing until about the last 2 minutes of the game, and didn't lead at all in the second half until then. And then they won by 2. So
okay. I
had some crazy picks in there that I thought, you never know. I mean, this might happen. But we'll see what happens. It's just fun, man. Like the one and done. It's just the nature of March Madness is fun.
Yeah.
So
we got a full studio tonight.
We do.
Full house.
You want to bring them in now?
Yeah, we got Brian and Shea. Let everybody know who you are and what you guys do.
Let Brian go first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm Brian I'm Brian with Jet Clean Pressure Washing, and this is my wife Shea. We are glad to be here.
All right. Yep. Awesome. Glad you're here.
You don't do anything?
No.
Okay, cool. Just here to make us all look ugly.
I don't believe that 1 minute. Yeah. Anytime
I let him talk that one time, and then I'll take over.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I mean, I've found typically that when there's a woman in the business, she does all the work. So is that not true?
I do all the physical work, and
See?
she handles literally everything else.
I'm just saying, like,
she starts telling me about websites and all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, sounds.
What do I go wash?
Yeah. Let me know when I need to get in the truck and go somewhere.
That's funny.
All right, so before we do a deep dive on y'all's business, we got to handle a couple of news stories.
Yes,
and then we got to thank our sponsors. Which one do you want to do first?
Let's do sponsors first.
Let's do sponsors.
All right, we're going to start off with Lone Star Appliance Repair.
Lone Star Appliance Repair. Listen, guys, it's just cheaper to get your appliance fixed.
How many times do we have to tell people?
We have to tell you every single time. But look, it's cheaper to get your appliance fixed, and it's also good to work with a company that keeps the parts in stock.
Yeah.
And so you're not having to get a diagnosis and then wait 10 weeks for the part to come in. Mm-hmm. Also, they'll tell you if they can't fix it.
Right.
Like that. I had to have that conversation with them recently. They're like, look, you picked a crappy appliance. Mm-hmm. They discontinued it after 2 years because it was terrible, which is probably why it was cheap when you bought it.
Yep.
And so you just have to replace it now because they don't even want to make the parts for it anymore. It was that bad.
Yeah.
So they'll tell you that instead of just leading you down this path of hope.
That's right. Well, and we do live in a replacement culture
very
right
much
now.
Yeah.
And it's just like, look, when I can buy a 65-inch TV that is a 4K smart TV, Roku TV at Walmart for $297, we're in replacement culture.
Yep.
And so this idea of just throwing something away rather than getting it repaired is normal. And so we want to be out there educating people that you can replace your appliance you can choose to not replace your appliance and get it fixed. Because again, most of us have appliances that match.
Yep.
And once you replace one of them, you got to replace all of them to make it look right. You got to look good whenever people come over.
Well, and not only that, man, I mean, you talk about replacement culture, that's coming to a severe end very, very quickly if you don't know, because tariffs.
Oh,
Like if you want to watch your new appliances get more expensive,
Yeah.
hold on to your butts because it's a coming. And the thing that's going to be really affordable is to get your appliance fixed. So
Yep. So
give 'em a call.
Give them a call or send them a text. Either one. 936-647-2364. And they will help you out. And our next sponsor is True Texas Solar and Roofing.
True Texas Solar and Roofing.
Yeah, what do you want to tell you about them?
Listen, this is one of the only companies that is your full solution for power independence. You can't get off the grid, but you can definitely stay off it as much as possible by getting a whole home battery, a full home generator, and solar panels. And you're getting it done by an honest company, which is rare. Most of these solar companies just want to put you through the ringer and get you into the highest interest rate and not let you pay attention to all of the incentives that, for some reason, are still hanging around by the federal government.
Yeah.
Elon hadn't found those yet.
Not yet.
So take advantage of them while you can, look, take advantage of the systems that are put in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, I actually, where I work, we just got a massive commercial solar system,
Right.
And it's great, except that there's little pieces that have to happen at the end of the job in order for your system to be turned on and actually be functional. And part of that has to do with the energy company doing a little bit of switch over on their end. And we're having trouble with it.
Right.
We're having trouble with the company, the energy company, doing what they have to do. And, the company that sold us the solar, they've been somewhat helpful, but not super helpful.
Right.
And they weren't True Texas Solar and Roofing. And I actually talked to Josh about it, and he was like, man, we would have had that taken care of.
Right.
Because they just take care of you. And not only that, they're a roofing company as well. And so they're going to be able to help you start to finish. If you need a new roof, they're going to help you get it now rather than having to deal with taking the solar panels off and then putting them back on. And if you get it done right and get it done well, theoretically, you wouldn't have to replace your roof until you need to replace the solar panels anyway.
Right.
And so you're going to be taken care of. So give them a call. They're great people. They know what they're talking about. Their number is 936-286-8325.
Awesome. So a couple of quick stories I wanted to hit on tonight, mostly because I think they're interesting and fun. I know Brian and I were talking a little bit before the show, but have you heard about the discovery with the pyramids?
I have.
Yeah?
This.
That's wild.
If LiDAR has done what we think LiDAR has done, something unbelievable has been discovered.
Yeah. So 2,100 feet beneath the surface.
That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense.
No.
What they're saying.
Let's explain what's happened.
Well, they found 8 symmetrical cylinders underneath the pyramid that look like structures that almost are like corkscrewed.
Yeah.
And it'd be weird if they found one. It's really weird that they found 8 that are almost exactly the same size, 2,100 feet underneath the pyramid.
But the purpose of them,
Who knows?
yeah, my guess is that they're structural.
To hold it up?
So yeah, I mean, in some ways, it's almost like pillars. That we build pier and beam stuff all the time. With 12-inch piers.
But why would you go down that far? And what they're
I don't know.
what they're saying that they found with the LiDAR is that there actually are rooms.
Well, here's the thing. If it was done the way it looks like it was done, they could have been both. They could have been both structural and supported something inside of them as well. Now, where that trap door is to get down into it, it's why I think the cylindrical actually makes sense, because those could be stairs or something to help you get into different compartments.
Yeah.
It's wild. If you haven't seen images of it, go online and look. It's very interesting.
Shay's shaking her head. She's
Yeah,
like, I haven't seen this.
I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Well, it's these Italian researchers that have been out there. It's a form of radar that they've been shooting underneath the ground, and they found these cylinders going 2,100 feet. And for those of you that know, 2,100 feet's a long freaking way.
It's a long way.
Yeah.
I mean, 300 feet is a football field, right? So 100 yards. So we're talking, 700 yards below the surface.
That's
And
crazy.
If you don't know what, like, LiDAR is a mapping system,
Right.
is really what it is. So, like, if you have it, we talked recently about a robot vacuum. Most robot vacuums have a little, something on top of it that looks like a little cylinder, and it's got a little spinny thing on it. That's LiDAR. And it helps map out your house.
Basically like a fish finder for the desert.
Yeah.
You just,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great way to. It's a mapping system, and so they're able to find things. It's bizarre.
Well, so I read an article that said that what they've found is 2,100 feet below the surface. What they're expecting to find is about 4,000 feet below the surface. They said there's additional structures that they think are beneath these cylinders. It's like, what is going on?
Yeah, that's
And
crazy.
it is lighting up the alien community like none other.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, the whole idea of it being a power plant instead of
Yes.
a tomb
Yep.
is...
People have been saying that for years.
Yeah. I don't know.
You fall in line with that?
I kind of go back and forth on it, but it
I-
kind of seems like it could be.
Yeah.
That'd be wild. And then this might help to clear up maybe what's going on with them. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. For me, it's kind of like the JFK assassination. I don't think it's going to answer any questions. I think it's just going to rev up more conspiracies.
Yeah.
Because the only way to understand it is to dig it up, and they're not going to do that. There's no way the Egyptian government's going to let them start digging around these things.
2,100 feet.
Well,
Yeah.
they make way too much money on the mystery.
Right.
The other thing that I heard about this is there were some scholars, be generous, that have said, because like Egypt isn't the only place where we have pyramids, right? We have them in South America. There's some other places where we see them.
Yeah, they're all over the place.
Yeah, and what they said about the Mayans and the Aztecs is they would actually build the pyramids on top of what they considered sacred caves. And so they were like, well, maybe these are just sacred caves that they built the Egyptian pyramids on. And I'm like, 8 symmetrical cylinders that are caves?
Caves are not like that.
I'm like, I just spent some time in some caves. Like, there's nothing symmetrical about any of them.
No, and,
Yeah.
and most of them you don't. You can't.
It's not a
figure
straight
out
shot down.
No.
It's nothing like that. Like it just doesn't look like that.
No.
Unless they're built that way.
Yeah. Right.
It's just weird.
Well, I mean, it makes it even crazier. Everyone talks about how the pyramids were built,
Right.
and that's a conspiracy in
Yep.
itself. But then who could, back then, who could dig cylinders down to the ground
Yeah.
2,100 feet?
Right.
So that's even more mind blowing, and
It is.
it
makes
does
no
tell them
sense.
what's going on.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Who knows what's going on? But like, it's an interesting and developing story. A lot of people are trying to debunk it, which good on them. I mean, like, it's good to be skeptical.
Yeah.
I'm just intrigued.
Yeah. Of course.
But I've also never gone down the pyramid rabbit hole, and this is kind of
I
like
haven't either.
this is kind of itching that scratch.
Yeah.
For me, it's like, okay, maybe now's the time.
Yeah. Well, we can ask your mom what she thinks.
I'm sure she has an opinion.
I'm sure she does.
So, well, and so the other big story from this week that I thought would be interesting, because it actually does affect our audience, is Trump essentially dismantling the Department of Education.
Yeah, that is interesting. There's a couple of things. You mentioned JFK. Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, they released all the documents from that, which basically said nothing.
It did. Well, it's really difficult to filter through anything.
80,000 pages.
I mean,
It's
it's
just like the Epstein thing. It was like, oh, we're going to release all this stuff. And then,
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Yeah,
Cool.
look-
It was like everything we already knew.
Yeah, pretty
Right.
much.
So there's a lot of weird things going, but like you said, dismantling the Department of Education. And what I'll say about that to begin with is that I understand reasonably so. There are a lot of people freaking out about this. People
Freaking out as in like it's a bad thing, or freaking out as in it's like woohoo?
know that it's a bad thing.
Okay, sure. Yeah, there
And
are a lot of people doing that.
because especially people in education that are not just in the like grade school level, but also in the college level. There are people that are concerned about this, partly because they're educators that have kids, and so they're going, hey, for my kids, I'm concerned about what's happening here, because for so long there's been these standards and this, that, and the other, and I get all of that. I'm not disqualifying that in any way.
Sure.
I'm very concerned with my own kids, and we in fact we had during the election not too long ago. We had Dr. Mark Ruffin on here, who's a superintendent out of Montgomery. I'm a huge supporter of a lot of things related to schools. My wife is an educator herself, so I get all of that. However, there are certain things that I think we have to understand with all of what's happening in the government right now. Just because something gets taken away does not necessarily mean something else might not replace it.
Sure.
And that's something that I think that it gets overlooked, is just like, oh my goodness, they're just taking this away. It's like, okay, hold your breath for just a minute and let's see what happens. And oh, by the way, there are some things that states do really well with. The problem is where you have states that are like 45th, 49th in the country of how they run their school system.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that I would be really concerned about. Here in Texas, we don't have that problem. We have a pretty good education system.
Yeah.
So it's different. So those are my initial thoughts on all of it.
Yeah, yeah. What, did y'all hear about it? I mean,
Yeah.
I knew about it, yeah. But, I mean,
are y'all kids in public school? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
both of them go to Canyon Creek. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I heard about it really just in the last few days, but I haven't really looked into it. And, everything that's going
It's hard
on
to
with
keep up, honestly.
Well, I mean,
that.
that's,
There's stuff happening every day. It's
that's kind of the problem with him, man. Is like you like one day you could be upset about what he's doing, the next day he's just doing 5 other things.
Yeah.
And so you don't know what to be upset about, what to be happy about.
You don't really even have time to research what's really going on.
Yeah.
If you should be mad or not, or it's like, oh, on to the next thing. Yeah.
What, so like, do you guys even know about the lady that's running the Department of Education right now?
I've heard a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like she's from like the WWE.
Yeah.
It's like one of his old wrestling buddies.
Yeah, really.
It's McMahon. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Oh, it's his wife.
It's his
man's
wife.
wife.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. No.
Yeah.
And it's like, look, if you wanted to like go in and just like blow up the Department of Education, send in the WWE. That sounds like a great idea.
Right. Right.
Like they'll make a spectacle of
Start
it.
hitting people with folding chairs.
Yeah, get out of here.
He could have called Billy Corgan, but and we're back. Somehow we got to relate it back to Bill Burr, right? And that's our connection.
No,
So they're not really brothers, right? It's just a whole thing.
I don't know.
But that's the thing,
hard
man.
to know.
Like,
I keep
look,
seeing videos and I'm like, wait, are they? Wait, no, they're not. Right?
Here's the problem. They refuse to take a DNA test.
Well, one of them does.
No, both of them.
Oh, do they
both of them. Both of them refuse to take a DNA test. But Billy Corgan went on Rogan and confirmed the story that like it was plausible.
Oh yeah, it's plausible.
And Bill Burr hasn't denied it. This is the thing, is like everyone keeps saying it's a bit, but like I'm like, Billy Corgan is not a comedian.
No.
And like
He has nothing to gain from that at all.
No.
None.
Yeah.
And so he's just relaying the story. And if you go watch like the outtakes from the Howie Mandel podcast, like they're talking like they have a conversation like, what was Dad like at your place? What was Dad like at your place? And it's bizarre.
Yeah, I saw that, and I didn't know if it was a bit or not.
Well, like we were one of the first ones to report on it, and then people were like, "You're such an idiot. It's a bit." And I'm like, look, like no one said that it is, and until they come out and say that it is, I'm just going to take them at their word that they had like a, and so. The way it seems to be playing out is that Bill Burr's dad, supposed dad, was like I think he was a dentist or something like that.
Yeah.
But like what, if you listen to Billy Corgan talk about his dad was kind of a psychopath, and so like had supposedly fathered like a bunch of kids, like across the country, and it seems like Bill Burr's mom may have had a little side action with Billy Corgan's dad.
It's just right
because
there.
But I bring that up because so many people are like, well, we know who Bill Burr's dad is. It's like, no, we know the guy who raised Bill Burr.
Right.
But like, if you look at Bill Burr and you look at Billy Corgan,
They're the same.
there's some stuff going on there.
Yeah. Well, and Billy Corgan is saying, of all the people I've ever known, Bill Burr looks more like my dad than anybody else
That's
I've
what he
ever
said.
known.
He said it was like looking at my dad, and I'm like, that's crazy.
That is.
So, but like, I mean, like, you can also just do that because you miss your dad, you had a bad relationship.
Yeah.
I mean, like that's kind of stuff happens. Anyway, I want to come back to the Department of Education.
Sorry to derail.
It's
with
fine. It's
butterfly
triggering
wings.
because people target me online because of this stuff.
Which is why I want to come back to it.
Apparently, I'm a bootlicker.
Well,
what did we get? We got called something new the other day. What was it?
Oh, I missed it.
Oh, that's what it was. Like the little creeper guy from Casablanca that
I've
with
never
like
seen
the
that
big
movie.
eyes.
I've never seen the movie, so I'm not helpful.
No one would even know who he is if I said his name. Anyway, he was an actor back in like the 30s.
Okay.
Anyway, they said that I was him and that you were some weird Duck Dynasty clone.
Oh.
Yeah, that was the latest
before I trimmed my
volley of like why we're wrong is because we're those guys.
Okay.
That's what it's come to is like you can't bring any like substantial like argument against us, so you just make fun of our appearance.
Call us names.
Oh, that's nice.
My soul patch has come up many times. By the way.
Has it?
Yeah.
Well, I trimmed off 6 inches of my beard, so that makes a difference.
So anyway, I actually listened to the Trump speech about basically just gutting the Department of Education. And everything that I've heard from people who are opposed to it say he affirmed in his speech. And what I mean is people were wondering what's going to happen with the Pell Grants.
Okay.
And he's like, we're keeping the Pell Grants. And people are concerned about what happens to funding for special education and special needs children. He goes, no, we're keeping all of that. All of that is staying. And so he goes through it line by line, which is really weird, like to hear Trump do that. I've never heard him he usually speaks in like big grandiose ideas and things
general terms.
Yeah, exactly. Very general terms. But he went through line by line of all the things that I've heard other people express as a concern by getting rid of the Department of Education. To be fair, we're not getting rid of the Department of Education. It's going to take Congress voting, and we don't have the votes to do that. So I don't think it's actually going to happen.
Right.
But he was saying all of the things that you're concerned about, we're going to keep.
Right.
And to keep it in perspective, we've only had the Department of Education since 1979.
Oh.
Like, that's not that long.
No.
And the thing that a lot of people that are in favor of this are pointing out is that since 1979, education standards have drastically declined.
We have like the worst, or one of the worst.
One of the worst.
Yeah.
One of the worst. And now I don't know that you can lay that all at the feet of one department.
Yeah.
Right.
I don't think that's fair.
Especially when the states do still have rights when it comes to what they teach and how they teach it.
And a lot of influence.
They do.
On that. Like, there's a reason there's local school boards that get together and talk about a curriculum. Now, like, some of that is kind of narrow that they can actually discuss and make changes on. But so whenever we have conversations about this, I usually bring this book, and that's the reason I brought it in the studio tonight.
Okay.
So this is a book that I keep in my library, and people that listen to the show regularly probably don't know. Like, I am a avid book collector, reader, all this kind of stuff. I have had this book in my collection for about 30 years.
Okay.
And this book was published in 1904.
All right.
Okay. And can you read the title?
It says Poems Every Child Should Know.
Poems Every Child Should Know. So I actually use this when I talk to young adults a lot of times because I want them to understand how their brains have changed over the years because of technology. Mm-hmm. This is actually a school book from 1904. And if you read the introduction to this book, what it will tell you is the intention of this book is for children to memorize these poems.
Okay. That doesn't happen anymore, first of all.
It's not a thin book.
No, it's a lot.
And if you open, and like when I say poems every child should know, that's exactly what it means, is that you should know these poems, right? And these are not like lightweight poems. I mean, some of these poems go for pages. A lot of this is Rudyard Kipling, Lord Byron. I'm just flipping through it to like give you context for what Longfellow, right?
It's not Sarah Cynthia Sylvia Stout.
No,
it's
not. It's not like the Shelley Silverstein, like,
right?
You know, which he was a great poet,
sure.
But like the intention of this book was to be a reader that children would memorize and know poetry. Kind of like, I mean, and I'm not trying to be like religious about it, but like kind of like children were expected to read and memorize the Bible.
Sure.
Back in the day. That was a big part of people's education.
It was.
And so like we learn different now. and standards have changed. And I get that, but like at the same time, the potential for our brain is not being used. You know,
I don't disagree.
And so like it's good to go back and look at a book published in 1904.
Yeah,
I mean that was before World War I, y'all.
that's
Yeah.
well, and like whenever you think about it's funny whenever you hear some older generations talk about younger generations. One of the things that they do talk about is the dumbing down.
Yeah.
They talk about dumbing down, and part of it definitely has something to do over the years of how technology has decreased our capacity to think. Because I mean, you remember whenever we were children, we would sit around and we would talk about a subject, and we would talk about it and talk about it and talk about it and talk about it and talk about it until we just decided, well, I guess we don't know anything. And now all you got to do is pull out a phone and you can find the answer. And we do this I find myself doing it all the time.
Yeah,
well, let me just look it up real quick.
Even when you don't need to do it, you're just,
Absolutely. I'm going to look it up. And all of a sudden, within moments, I've got the answer and I never had to think.
Yeah, it's access to exterior reservoirs of information.
Which isn't a bad thing. Please don't hear me say that.
No, it's not a bad thing.
It's actually wonderful. I'm so thankful that I have the technology to be able to find answers so readily and quickly, but it does change what our brains are actually doing in that process.
And like you can run this as a test, which I think is actually kind of fun and interesting. Is if you talk to anyone between the ages of like 15 and 18 right now, and you stop them on the street and you say, "Could you tell me your parents' phone number?"
Kaylee can, but I made sure Kaylee knew our phone number.
Is Kaylee your daughter?
Our daughter.
Okay.
Yeah. I made sure Kaylee knew my phone number, but she couldn't tell you his.
Right.
But she knew my phone number because when she went to school, I was like, I drilled it into her.
Yep.
Yeah.
This was mama's number. This was mama's number. But if you asked her what his was,
But did
you know.
did you know your parents'
Yep.
phone number whenever you were growing up?
when I was
And I know we didn't have cell phones, but your home phone number and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
My mama and daddy still had their house phone until they sold their house 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And when they finally cut the cord, I was like, "But what happens to the phone number?"
Did you know work number as well?
No, I
Okay.
didn't really call my parents at work.
No, well, I was just curious. Like I did. I mean, I knew in where I grew up, you only had to know the last four digits plus one. The prefix was we had 806, and then it was 872, and then you had the last four digits. We only ever had to dial 2 and the last four numbers. It was small town, but nevertheless,
Yeah.
It's to your point, the things that we have to store in our brains are very little.
Yeah.
I feel like our brains, like there's just so much going on nowadays that your brain just gets pulled in so many different directions that you can't really focus and learn or memorize things. It's just like you got a million different things going on.
Memorization is tough.
Yeah.
For nowadays, and I don't know what it is, but like it's really really hard to get people to memorize things. You know, like I when you talk about phone numbers, I remember my home phone number, which my parents haven't had for years.
Yeah.
And honestly, the only reason I remember it is how I get a discount at Kroger on my gas.
Hey, I tried to use my parents one time and it didn't work. They must have changed it.
Oh no!
They
How
caught on
dare
to it.
they?
I know.
You were looking for that extra 10 cents. I know what you were doing.
I did. I was trying. That's rude.
Well, I use the last four digits of my parents' previous, their old home phone number. They don't have it anymore, as like the code to a lot of things. Like, because I mean, no one's ever gonna find that number again.
Yeah.
You know, and I have it stored up here, forever and ever.
Yeah, it's a different world, man. It
is.
really, really is. And when you start thinking about like what Neuralink is trying to do, give you like direct access to information and interface with technology, it's gonna be a weird world, really, really fast.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
Anyway, let's talk about you guys, which is much more calming.
Yes, yes.
We have nothing to do with Neuralink.
Yet.
Well, yeah.
Look, as soon as they make the power washer that you don't have to control with your hands and you just got to think about it.
Well, they do, but I mean, there's bigger companies that use drones that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they'll do really tall buildings or whatever.
They're doing it with drones.
Yeah.
Is it like a drone to like carry like a hose?
Yeah,
Or-
it takes the hose up there. You can soft wash.
That's a big
It
drone.
just it climbs, and they have ones that climb up the building and spray it all the way down.
Yeah, there's
That's
all
cool.
There's all kinds of stuff going on now.
We need to play
Yeah.
with that stuff, y'all.
Yeah, you got some drones, man. I'll hook a hose up to it.
I got a drone.
Yeah, let's do it. I might be calling you.
Let's do it. I'm in favor. Like, as long as
I
we
got
get to
this
video
12-story
it.
building. I got to get to the top of.
Well, so let's start there. Tell us what you do, how long you've been doing it, how you got into it. Let's just kind of start with an overview.
So yeah, we got into it about last August, so it's only been a few months. So we're very small, but yeah, it's pressure washing, soft washing. We do everything residential, so roofs, soft wash house, any concrete work, fences, decks, all of that. We can clean that.
Can you start off by explaining the difference between pressure washing and soft washing?
So pressure washing is mainly for like concrete, or if you're, you use it for fences sometimes, but mainly like harder surfaces that aren't going to get damaged. And then soft washing is using, the standard is SH, which is sodium hypochlorite, or, basically pool bleach. You mix that with soap and water, and you spray the house down, and it'll take all the, the organic growth and all that sort of thing off. Any kind of
mold and mildew?
Yeah,
Okay.
mold, algae, mildew, all that sort of thing on the outside of the house. And it helps to preserve the wood and siding and all that. So, you're not replacing that, after a few years.
Is it different when you're dealing with like hardy plank or something like that, or say stucco?
Yeah. So the ratios of bleach and water change, mainly like from brick to siding, that sort of thing. Like siding's very easy to clean. It's only usually like 1.5% to 2% bleach. And then brick is usually like 3 to 4%, sometimes 5, depending on how dirty
Get a little
it
heavier
is.
handed.
Yeah, and then if you're doing a roof, which is asphalt shingles most of the time, that's usually like 6% bleach.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so and a lot of times I'll just let it sit on there and it'll clean, and it'll the rain will wash it off, and by the time it washes that down, the corrosiveness of it is faded out of the bleach. So
Do you have to like cover landscaping or?
yeah, so you do have to be very careful. You have to either have someone on the ground that's rinsing, if you have bushes around the house or grass. I would say bushes, you need to cover it if you're doing a roof.
Like a good tarp or something like
Yeah,
that?
like a tarp or something on the section that you're doing.
Does that change if you have gutters? Like if you have gutters, can
Yeah, so you just have to be careful. Like
you overspray?
Yeah, overspray, and then you might have to capture at the bottom of the gutter.
Sure.
So you have to pay attention to where it's running off at. Definitely if it's like running off into a neighbor's yard or that person's yard.
Yeah.
You might put a trash bag or something to capture, and not have all that running. But also you want to keep everything wet all the time. That way it's diluted down. So even if you're going to get some bleach on the plants and things sometimes.
Yeah.
But as long as you keep everything wet, it won't do anything.
Is that something that the DIYers kind of struggle with? I mean, I would think that you go buy like a Troy built power washer and you're like, I'm going to wash my house.
Yeah.
Like you're just going to use like soap and water. I mean, like are they not using it properly to clean their house?
You can clean a house there's chemicals that don't use bleach also.
Sure.
But a lot of times they're using household bleach, which isn't going to be as strong.
Or they mark up their screens. You can tell the ones that use the full
Oh, yeah.
blast. You can see where they scratched and messed up their screens.
Yeah, we've seen that at houses too, where they'll pressure. So that's another reason why we soft wash houses. You don't want to put pressure to them. It's because it'll damage everything.
Yeah.
And I've been to houses where I've cleaned them, and they had a guy come out there with a pressure washer and to pressure wash their house, and he just took it to their house, and left like lines in the screens because it's just blasting through the screen.
Yeah.
And using like the like
Oh, the
pinpoint.
pin.
Yeah, like it's the red tip, which is like the one that's just
Yeah.
like the strongest. And yeah, you see that stuff like that all the time. And there's like, oh yeah, we called a guy and he came out, and I'm like, well,
Screwed it up.
yeah.
I mean, like permanently.
Yeah. Where you have
There's
to
no
buy
recovery from that.
You have to buy new screens if you do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we soft wash, and so I mean, it's pretty gentle on everything. Like the house washing and stuff, it's not really going to tear up your plants or anything like people think it is. You see videos online of people doing it, and all the comments are just like, "Oh, well, there goes your grass," or "There goes your bush," or whatever. But yeah, as long as you're safe, you rinse everything down before. Usually, as I'm washing, I'll turn the soap off, keep rinsing everything down while it's sitting there,
Yeah.
and then I'll rinse the house down, and then I'll go back, rinse the grass off again. And as long as you're doing that and keeping up with it, and you're not just leaving bleach sitting there on everything, then you're good.
Are other companies not doing or recommending these? I'm thinking about these companies that marked the screens. Are they not doing that because they don't know any better, or because it goes faster, or
in this industry, I think you run into a lot of just guys that are trying to do it just to make a few extra bucks on the side,
shooting from the hip?
Yeah, and they don't do any kind of research, and they're just like, well, I have a power washer, so I'll just get the one out of my garage, and I'll go to my neighbor's house and tell them I'll do it for $50, and it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You go out there and they're just trying to blast dirt off of the house, and they don't know any better, and they didn't really research it. So I mean, you can go on YouTube, you can research all of it and find out what chemicals do what. I mean, there's all kinds of different stains and things that you find on houses that you need to know how to get off too. So
what's the toughest one?
You get a lot of clay stains, can be tough.
Are you talking about like clay, like from the ground bouncing up on the house?
Like you'll see it on like new construction and stuff, when they don't have any grass or whatever sod in the yard.
Yeah.
They'll get clay up on like the concrete, and sometimes, I mean, once you get it on there, it's real hard to get off. Or like rust stains on a driveway. Yeah, I mean, you have to use certain kinds of acids and things to get those off. So, yeah, that can be tricky. And a lot of people, aren't asking for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But every once in a while, you'll have something like that, or like oil stains, things like that.
Are those kind of like specialty services, or?
Yeah, that'd be, if you're doing like a driveway clean and then you have a giant rust spot or something, it'd be extra.
Yeah, so like, I mean, say I had Jimbo come do an oil change in my driveway, and he spilled some oil. I need you to come get that up. I mean,
so
what am I looking at? I imagine it depends on the size, but like,
yeah.
I mean, I'm not asking you to like pin you down or anything. I'm curious what I'd be looking at.
Well, I mean, it's not a lot extra. I mean, especially if it's just like one spot, but also with oil stains, I mean, those are one of the trickier things. And really, if it sits there longer than a few days, I mean, you're not getting it fully out.
Well, I think that's one of the things that you should know about concrete in general is it's very porous. It's very porous.
Yeah.
And it's like a sponge.
That stuff gets down in there quick. And, if you don't get cat litter on it or something and keep it at the surface level. Now, if it's up at the surface or you do it real quick, I mean, you can get it off.
Yeah.
And, basically I just scrub degreaser into there and let it sit and try to bring that oil and stuff back up to the surface and then clean it off with the surface cleaner. But if you're just doing surface cleaner, it's not going to get it off.
Does it take a long time to do something like that?
No, it doesn't take too long. I mean, you scrub it in there, let it sit for 10, 15 minutes, let it get in there real good. I usually kind of soak it in there and then let it get down in there, and then I scrub it after like 5 or 10 minutes and get it down deep in there, and then just try to get it out as best you can. You might have to do it a few times, but
if nothing else, I mean, you can probably make it lighter than it was.
You make it a lot lighter. It looks a lot better. It's just, I always tell people that, hey, I mean, I'll try to let them know up front that this is going to be tough, and you might not get it completely out.
Sure.
And, and as long as they know, they're usually okay with it. So.
Yeah. Shea, you might know this one, but you may not. I don't know. But like, what are like homeowners' biggest misconceptions about hiring a power washing company? I mean, like as far as like expectations and services, and
I think, expect it to be cheap.
Yes,
they really do. They want like the house wash, a fence, driveway, gutters, and they only want to spend like $200.
Okay.
And they have like a 3,000 square foot house.
Wow. That's a lot of work.
Well, okay,
is.
so for people to understand though, I mean, like a 3,000 square foot house, if you're doing the house, you're doing the fence, normal size yard, how long are you guys going to be out there?
So the last job that he was out, he only did half of the house. 2 driveways, right?
No, the last one it was all concrete, but it was 2 driveways and it was a giant path that went around her whole house.
Okay.
And this is, God, I want to say the house is like 4,000 square feet.
Okay. So you were just doing the driveways
Just
and the
the
walk
driveway.
path.
Yeah,
Okay.
but they had curbs on everything too. Like most driveways don't have curbs. And
Yeah.
for me, it kind of took longer just to, it was a lot of detail work too.
Yeah.
But I mean, even that took like 4.5 hours, I think.
Yeah, that's a long time to be.
Yeah.
And that's a good pressure washer with a surface cleaner,
And having 2 people work it's,
Yeah.
I mean.
4 hours. I mean, like that's a bunch of time. That's a bunch of money.
With us, we clean it. Also, I pre-treat the concrete. So I'll spray bleach and soap on that, let it sit. It brings all the organics up and it kills them. And then you go over it and then I post-treat it also. So that takes time. You're rinsing off all the dirt in between.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of time too. But,
And not to mention the time it took you to prep to go there.
Yeah.
To drive there.
Yeah, you're running
To drive
hoses back and forth.
There's a lot.
And all the bleach that sits in my car because I have to.
Yeah, she has to go on bleach runs. So
Well,
I'm
I
like,
think
don't
that's-
get in an accident.
Yeah, I think that's the other thing to talk about is chemicals aren't cheap.
No.
And so you're talking not just about, I mean, it's not just water because that's being supplied. Y'all have your own equipment. You have chemicals that you're doing. Now you have drive time, you've got gas, you've got overhead. I mean, there's just some stuff that's built in. And oh, by the way, you have labor time. And so once you start adding that up, people, this is common across all industries right now. People really have a misconception about how much things cost.
Yes.
And this is why we encourage people to do your research. And what I really encourage everyone on our show to do is like go in without an expectation if possible and go, look, this is what I want. How much is it going to cost? Check with y'all, check with Jim Bob, and check with somebody else.
Yeah.
And start finding out and you'll find that most people are, there's a consistency somewhere and there's someone that's completely inconsistent. Don't rule those people out and go with the consistency and just go, okay, well, this is something I either have to plan for or I'm ready to go.
What's like most things, I mean, you're going to get what you pay for.
Oh, yeah.
You don't want to go, there's probably some people out there that are just like, oh, it's $3,000, to do, and it's way over.
Sure.
Just trying to get as much as they can. But you do have to spend a little bit to get quality work. And also with pressure washing, soft washing, you're only doing it once or twice at the most a year. So if you get a good house wash, someone comes out and does your driveway, probably 6 months at the earliest is when you're going to need it done again.
Yeah.
And that's if you live under a bunch of trees, and it's always moldy and gross,
So let me
or
ask
the
that
yellow
question.
snow season right
Yeah,
now.
no, it's here.
Oh, yeah.
It's here.
That stuff's
I imagine
so
y'all
gross.
should be getting busy right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let me ask this. Let's say that you've got, typical just home, 2,000 square foot is what I'm going to go with. And a 2-car garage, normal driveway. We're not talking about acreage or anything else, just normal home. What might I consider a price point? Because honestly, if people are, next door neighbors doing it for 50, but it's also not 3,000, where is my price point somewhere?
So for a soft wash on a typical 2,200 square foot house, usually the house washing starts at about 400 is what you're looking at.
That doesn't seem bad.
Yeah.
No.
And what I do is if I go out there and I'm like, hey, someone wants me to wash their house, I might give them the driveway for $50.
Okay.
Even though
Because you're already there.
Yeah, I'm already there. I already got everything pulled out. If it's just the driveway, it usually start around $150. So yeah, I try to bundle things together too because it's a lot easier once you're out there.
Right.
You get all
I
the
heard
equipment.
bundle is life. So I heard that somewhere.
Bundle is life.
It's a commercial.
Well, here's the thing I try and point out to people all the time is so they can look at you and go, oh, he was here for 4 hours. and I paid this much. But like, I always ask people, like, what would you pay yourself? Because when you don't consider the drive time, when you don't consider the prep, like, and so like, let's take that into consideration. You're on this last job that we talked about. You were there for 4 hours. Well, I'm going to assume it took you at least 2 hours to prep and drive there and back, right? So that's 6 hours. I'm going to guess it's going to take them at minimum 12 hours to figure out how to do it, buy the equipment, and so like you're already out the cost of the equipment, you're out the cost of the chemical, and then you're out 12 hours. What would you pay yourself to do that job? And I'm guessing it's probably not $12
That's
an hour.
full weekend of work.
Yeah.
You're out there burning under the sun.
And it's like, look, if you're just a DIYer, that's fine. Like if you enjoy that, do it. Like we've had this conversation 100 times. Like, we used to have the calculator on the website. But like that's the thing is like, is it worth 12 hours of your free time, that you're not getting paid for, to do this job?
Exactly.
Yeah, I had a buddy of mine. He was texting me the other day, and I did his driveway, and then the neighbor came out and asked me, how much?
Yeah.
So I quoted her a price, and she was like, okay, well, you could tell she didn't want any part of it.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, well, just let me know. Gave her a business card. And then, a month later or whatever, he's texting me going, hey, she's out there, and they rented a pressure washer, and they've been out there all day long on a Saturday.
Yep. And they're going to be dissatisfied.
Yeah. And you're going to leave lines, and unless, that's another thing. So if I'm pre and post treating it, you're not going to have the lines. It's going to be bright, and it's going to look like a new driveway.
Yeah.
He had we've experimented on our friends and family, and he had a friend that texted me, or the wife did. She texted me and said, "I didn't realize our driveway was so bright."
Yeah, they said it glowed in the dark. When they got home that night, or whatever.
It does look like that. Like when it's had so much grime on it, and you clean it, it's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, you really don't know how dirty they get until you clean them, professionally clean. And then you see it afterwards. You're like, oh my god, like,
right?
It's not even the same color.
No,
like it's just completely different. The last job I did, the lady was just like, I'm like blown away. Like it looks way better than I expected it to.
Yeah.
And she was very pleased. So people don't realize that. I mean, it's a lot of work. One, and then if you're gonna get it done, just spend a few $100s and get it done professionally, and
you'll be happier.
Yeah, you're going to be happier for longer, and then you might have to pay that once a year. And
so, what is the purpose? Like, I mean, okay, so my driveway is a little bit grimy, or my house has some green on it. I don't even know. Like, why do I need that gone? Does it really matter?
Yeah, I mean, it preserves the life of your house too. So, I mean, just think.
What do you mean? I mean, I got brick, and the wolf can't blow it down. So, what's the big deal?
Well, brick, you're probably all right. Now, wood or hay, or what was the first? What was the first one?
Sticks and hay.
Sticks and hay.
Yeah,
Hay, then sticks.
Yeah.
No. So driveway and bricks and things like that, that's more appearance. I mean, your bricks aren't gonna like rot away or anything.
Right.
It's more of like a HOA thing. Like your HOA will come through and be like, hey,
that too.
Your house has got a little green on it.
Yeah.
We need to take care of that, or your driveway.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
But like, okay.
Do y'all know that Trump has floated like banning those?
The HOAs? Interesting.
I don't think it's a great idea.
Well,
That's a good idea.
If you have a good HOA that's not just trying to nickel and dime you or whatever,
Then you're okay with
then
it.
that's
Look,
good.
there's lots of people out there just like cheering for it. I
of course
guarantee
they
you.
are.
Yeah,
but
until
they're
their
gonna be-
neighborhood is horrible looking.
That's the problem. Well, okay. Hard surfaces, you're probably okay. What about my roof? Like, I'm concerned about this because am I going to get granular loss, which they already talk about, and like all this kind of stuff. Like, where is the right choice whenever it comes to all this?
Roof, I really haven't seen that. Like when I clean a roof, I haven't seen like the runoff of the granules into the gutters or whatever. Mm-hmm. Like I haven't really seen that. Now, long term, I don't think you're gonna have a problem with it. It's just I look at it this way. Like if you've ever seen someone that never washes their car, and you just see the paint start fading off, and it just looks like crap.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing with a house. Like if you're never washing your house, you're just letting organic grow all over it. You've seen houses like that, or like, old communities where someone moves out and no one ever moves back into a house and it just looks terrible.
Yep.
The wood starts rotting away. Everything starts to rot away. So yeah, if you're not keeping it clean and you're not, keeping that organic growth from rotting into the wood and the siding and all that stuff, then yeah, you might have problems.
So we're a big advocate of maintenance on this podcast. We talk about it all the time.
Not like those other shows.
Right. Those less than number one shows.
Who won't be named on this podcast.
The ones that aren't number one in their category.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's when you hit that applause button.
Yeah, there you go. Where is it?
Number one.
So we talk about this all the time with your HVAC system. Like do the maintenance on it with your appliances. We talk about do the maintenance on it. Do the things that you need to do to get things, make sure things are working well. I mean, I've got a septic system. Every year I've got someone out coming and checking it, making sure everything's working well, because the problem is we get sidelined with things and we just forget about the play that's happening in front of us. And we go, man, I'm so busy with these other things that we lose track of it. And then what happens is we go, oh my goodness, we've got this big problem. And Jehu comes over to my house, my HVAC guy, and he's like, Kevin, if you would have done the maintenance on this, we wouldn't have this conversation. But now you need a new system. And it's like, oh man, I got to pay $10,000 on a new system versus $50 twice a year to have you come out and fix this. This is a similar type of thing.
Yeah.
We have maintenance that needs to happen because you own a home. You chose to own a home. Don't just let it go to waste. Like, do the things that need to be done, right?
In the grand scheme of things, it's not that much, to get, just to have it cleaned once or twice a year.
Yeah.
Have your driveway cleaned. Another thing, too, with concrete is if it does get a lot of organic growth, or you do live under a bunch of trees where it's just like, you've seen driveways that are just green. When it gets wet, it's not safe.
Oh, it's slick.
So, yeah. Or like in front of a business, if you have real slick concrete and you're having elderly customers walking through, how much is that going to cost?
Oh,
if they slip,
I don't want to think about it.
You get sued. And so that's another thing to think about.
I'm not far away from being one of those elderly.
No, you're close. You're a lot closer than me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
I
about
understand that.
7
I don't want
months.
to fall now.
Yeah.
That's true. I've done that.
I'm not getting up. I'm not getting
It's
back
right,
up.
not for a while.
I'm going to roll around in pain for a little while.
Yeah.
And I want that. If I'm rolling around on the ground in pain, I want it to be clean.
It should be clean.
Yeah, I don't want to have a bunch of algae growth
Right.
rolling around in.
No.
That's the last thing I need.
Yeah, right. I mean,
Barnacles
they're
on
already
my-
laughing at me. I don't need that on top of
Yeah,
it.
you don't want barnacles on your driveway. You got those. You got problems.
Yeah.
You probably live close to the ocean.
Well.
I would imagine.
Just salty.
In a pineapple.
Under the sea.
Yeah, right. You mentioned barnacles. That's immediately where my mind goes. But whatever. I'm sure there's other questions. Do you have other questions? I'm blanking on one right now.
Yeah, what's the weirdest thing you guys have cleaned?
I haven't cleaned anything too weird. I cleaned the inside of a garage.
Oh, okay.
And it was like they were having their whole house kind of renovated.
Yeah.
And they did the garage, and there was a ton of stuff left over, and it was just like,
Mud.
it was white with like sheetrock dust.
Oh, gosh.
And, and it was tricky because they just renovated it. So you go in there to clean it, and you don't want to splash water on the walls.
Yeah.
You don't want to, ruin all the work that just got done. So that was a tricky one, and that was kind of weird. So it took a little longer than we thought, but yeah.
How did you manage it? Did you put like some like water resistant stuff up on the walls, or like?
So I use
just careful.
So the surface cleaner doesn't spray out.
Are you talking about like the round like?
Yeah, the round
okay,
thing.
yeah,
So
that makes sense.
I had to use that in there, and now they had like a flooring. What is that stuff called?
Like epoxy.
Yeah, that sort of
okay.
thing. But it was older, and it was already kind of worn down.
Yeah.
And so I had to kind of like take a little pressure off to do that to make
So it
sure
wouldn't
it wasn't
pop up?
Yeah. And so it was fine. But yeah, it was a tricky one. But the surface cleaner doesn't spray water out; it just keeps it under it.
I got you.
So especially like near the walls, I was doing that, and yeah, it was.
I got a weird one for you. So my mother-in-law has this little screened-in porch area. It's small. It's not even as big as this room that we're in, but it concrete floor, and the walls are painted, but they were instead of sheetrock, that stuff you put in like wet spaces,
Like concrete board.
Yeah, concrete board. That's what it is. So that it's painted, but that's on there, and she's got a screen in there. Water does come in, whenever it rains or whatever. But is that something that it is near trees, and I don't know what it looks like, but I'm just thinking she did do like she had my kids came in there and did like brick sponge the floor
Yeah.
to make it look like bricks with like paint, sponge paint. But she used concrete paint on it.
Oh, okay.
So she did it the right way as far as that goes. But is that something that could be done, or is that like I might not do that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to see it. Anything could be clean. It's just you really have
The method.
The method of it
Yeah.
might need to change. And two, going into a job, you want to do test spots too.
Okay.
With certain chemical. Like if I'm using bleach and I'm like, well, the bleach might damage this or whatever, I'm going to try it and maybe a little.
I didn't know he did that at one point. And he was like taking his finger and like rubbing it in a spot. And
Yeah, just like
I was
something
like,
that's
what are you doing?
an inconspicuous spot that's not going to be seen ever.
Right, yeah.
You just test it and see if anything happens. And and that's kind of how you see, okay, well, this might be a problem, or it didn't do anything, we should be good.
Yeah.
And then you try a bigger spot and then you go from there. So yeah, I mean, it's probably just a change in method for something like that. I mean, certain paints and things can be problems.
Yeah. Well, I know we talked about shingle roofs. What about like the alternative roofs? I mean, we have tile, metal. What are some of the other ones? I'm thinking. I'm blanking.
Well, there's like clay or you said tile, but
Which
is
that's what
you-
that is.
like
Yeah, like
a
the-
Spanish tile.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty much the same method,
Okay.
Soft wash. And usually, those take like a higher concentration of bleach. Now, if you're doing like a metal roof, it would be lower, and you really have to make sure that you rinse it off really well, because the bleach can mess up the metal roof if you just like spray it on there and leave it.
Okay.
And it dries on there. I mean,
What would it do to it?
like it can turn it. I've seen jobs where it turned it, not my job, but like, but where it like starts to turn it black.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it'll mess up metal.
What about solar panels?
Solar panels, I've never done solar panels, but that's more of like you would use probably like window cleaning equipment.
Oh,
So yeah, if you have a really
get you a
tall,
squeegee.
Yeah, really tall, pole or whatever, and get up there and do that.
I actually imagine that's got to be something that needs to be done on solar
I would think
from time
so.
to time.
Especially after pollen season. I would
gosh.
think, goodness
Yeah.
gracious.
Well, I would think wouldn't be very effective.
You need
if
to clean
they're-
them to increase the efficiency. I mean, that's a good question. We need to ask Josh. Yeah.
I think we should ask him.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure they hire people that, I would think that's more of a window cleaning type of deal. But yeah,
Interesting.
Not that y'all couldn't handle it.
Maybe a
yeah.
drone.
Exactly. Well, we're looking.
Yeah.
A drone. Yeah, everything. We do anything with a drone. Of
course.
we have a whole team of drones that we
Oh my
employ.
gosh.
I would like to shower by drone.
Yeah,
That would be
Shower
fun.
by drone?
Yeah. Yeah. Take a
out in
shower.
nature? Like-
Absolutely.
just go out in the backyard and have it.
Why
just
not?
spraying
You
down,
said
yeah.
anything. I think showering by drone. Can you imagine like going camping and you're like out in the wilderness? And you're like a
Yeah.
drone shows up, showers.
That's a
you.
real quick way to have the whole place to yourself.
I know.
Yeah.
Hey,
Could
I
have a
already want the shower. I want it
Can
to
I have a shower
myself.
curtain?
Sure,
Like,
everyone's
up
like-
on top of you.
All of a
don't even
sudden, you
care.
hear a drone and he starts taking his clothes off. Like,
Yeah.
What are we?
It's really weird
What is
whenever you
this?
hear zzz.
That's a real Pavlovian response. It's like every time Kevin hears a propeller.
It's even weirder if you hear that noise and there's no drone around. Taking your clothes off. That'll really clear
I'm just
the room.
saying, it's a thought in my head. So you don't want to live up here. I didn't ever learn those poems.
I didn't do none of
Yeah.
that book learning.
You should have learned some poems.
That's right. Well, okay, so you've been doing this now for like what, like 7, 8 months. So
Yeah.
what would you say is whenever it comes to things you've learned and whenever people are preparing to, get something like this done, what would you say is besides price, what would you say one of the biggest misconceptions people might have, something that you've figured out and go, okay, every time I want to make sure that I tell people this, it's a common thing that I say?
I don't know. Like, I guess, the main thing is just, make sure that they're getting everything, prepared ahead of time, getting everything off of the porches or whatever when we're about to clean. I usually try to give people a heads up on that sort of thing.
Pets. Get
Yeah,
those-
yeah. Pets. Like if I'm just done cleaning, hey, maybe don't walk out on the driveway in your bare feet.
Right.
That's something. I mean, I've had to tell people. They'll start walking out, like looking at the work, and I'm like, oh, hold on, wait, let it, let it.
Put
sit
those
for a little
Crocs
bit.
on, people.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
It's those crunchy moms, man.
Crunchy.
But yeah, I mean, that's, generally before or after a job, those are the types of things I'm telling them. And then, the main thing, like she said, was the pricing is kind of what catches people off guard because they think it's going to be, $100, $200 for
Okay, so
everything.
So at what point do you start offering maintenance plans? Do we go, I'll come out to your house twice a year and do this?
We haven't started doing that yet. We just started, I think in the next maybe couple months we'll try to start, once we start getting more customers coming in, we'll start doing that.
Yeah. I think when it gets a little busier, we'll start doing that sort of thing. And
Yeah.
I mean, we do try to, I've had a few people already. They're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, in 6 months I'll give you a call and, we'll probably need this and this done too, or whatever.
I just think it would be a one more way for you as a business person in general, just to kind of think, okay, repeat business, but also for people that are normal, they just forget. And then, and then you're like, I'll call you in 6 months. And then it's 6 years before they call you back.
Yeah.
But had they done it maybe every 6 months, maybe it would have been, less work, maybe quicker, maybe not as expensive.
Well, as we start recording, like the customer, the
Database.
they get a database together and start contacting them like after 3 or 4 months. Hey, it's about time.
Yeah.
We noticed you had this done. You need me to come back out and do it, or maybe we can do your house this time, or something like that. So,
a little discount even. Hey, give you a little discount if we come out.
Well, we
at
currently
this.
do have a discount for customers, 20% off for customers. Right
Yeah.
now.
Okay.
Anyone
like
new
returning customers? Or?
No, any new customer.
Oh, okay.
So it's 20% off. If I'm doing, I'll take it off the total bill of whatever I'm doing. So if it's 2 or 3 things, that's more money off.
Oh, that's awesome.
So
I love that. It's
Yeah.
a good time to do that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool.
So,
So
I mean,
do they just need to ask for that, or is that just something
Nope.
you guys do just right
yeah,
off?
I'll let them know. Yeah. So, I mean, right now, since we're still new, we're trying to get customer base up. We're trying to get reviews, all that sort of thing. So we're just trying to get customers in. So,
That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll work.
That's
with
a
them
good
on
way to do
price.
it. I mean,
Well, I mean, that's what you got to do. I
Yeah.
mean, you got to start somewhere, and you're building a business. And one of the things I love about this is like right now, if you're listening to this, especially if you're in the Montgomery County area, which is I guess mostly where you're working.
Yeah,
or
it's mainly Montgomery, Conroe, Willis, Huntsville.
Yeah.
I mean, I've done jobs in Houston. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Just kind of
Cypress.
depends.
You went to Cypress.
Yeah, we
too.
went all the way out to Cypress.
Okay. So if you're in this North Houston area, I mean, you could really benefit from utilizing a newer company. They're giving a steep discount right now,
Yeah.
and it's probably something you've been thinking about anyway. And you're either gonna spend a few $100s with them, or you're gonna go buy that Ryobi thing that's got the little.
That's not quite powerful
cylinder.
enough.
It's not
Yeah.
powerful enough, and you're gonna be disappointed in it anyway. And it's $100.
Yeah.
So I look at this and I go, man, what a great opportunity. And man, I'm rooting for you guys. I know
Thank
that
you.
I know that things are already kind of working well for you, but it's a great deal for sure.
yeah.
Awesome.
So, anything else you guys want people to know?
Just we have a website. It's jetcleanpressurewashing.net,
.net.
and Facebook page is
Jet Clean Pressure Washing.
All right. You got a phone number?
Yes.
All right. We'll link it up in the show notes.
Okay, good.
Don't worry about it.
Because I don't know the whole
It's right below
You know, it's
in the
that
show
number.
notes.
Proving my point.
But it's a new phone number. It's a new phone number.
There's so much going on, Craig. We can't remember everything.
Look, I can't do
Give
it
him a
all.
freaking break. Come on.
I'll give him a break. I'm going to put it in the show notes.
That's right.
I'm also going to double down on the point I made earlier.
That's exactly right.
It was a good point, obviously.
Obviously.
No, it's awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining us. It's
thanks for
Yeah,
having us
thank
on.
y'all
it's
so
been a lot
much.
of fun, and I'm sure we'll be hearing more from you guys. Thank you all of you out there listening or watching. We appreciate you very much. If you've not already gone on and liked and subscribed to our channels, please do so. Tell your friends about us. We are the #1 podcast in our category, according to some people.
Yep.
And
There's some list
leave
out
us
there.
a rating and review. That would really help as well. We thank you so much. And until next time, we'll see you later.
See ya.